My name is Mara Quinn. And if you have ever loved a place so deeply that it felt like losing it would rip your soul in half, then you will understand every single word I am about to tell you. Home is not just four walls and a roof. It is not just an address you write on envelopes or a place where you sleep at night. Home is the smell of your mother's cooking wafting through the hallway on Sunday mornings. It is the sound of your father's voice calling your name from the backyard. It is the creak of the third step on the staircase that you learn to skip when sneaking out at night. It is every laugh, every tear, every whispered secret, every scraped knee, every birthday candle you ever blew out. Home is where your memories live. And for me, that home was everything. Until the day my uncle sold it without my permission and looked me in the eye and called it just business. That was the day I learned that family could betray you deeper than any stranger ever could. That was the day I lost everything I loved. But it was also the day I made a promise to myself. A promise that would take 5 years of blood, sweat, and silent determination to keep. This is the story of how I lost my entire world and then rebuilt it brick by brick, deal by deal, dollar by dollar. This is the story of how I bought back my power, my dignity, and eventually his mortgage. This is the story of how karma found its way home. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a small house on the edge of Maplewood. If you have never lived in a place like Maplewood, let me paint you a picture. It was the kind of neighborhood where people still waved at each other from their front porches, where kids rode their bikes down the street until the streetlights came on, where every mailbox had a name on it and every name had a story. Our house was not big. It was not fancy, but it was ours. My father, Daniel Quinn, built most of it with his own 2 hands. He was a carpenter by trade, a man who believed that if something was worth doing, it was worth doing right. He would spend hours in his workshop behind the house, sawdust clinging to his flannel shirts, humming old country songs while he sanded wood until it was smooth as glass. My mother, Clara, was a teacher at the local elementary school. She had this way of making everyone feel seen, feel heard, feel important. She would bake chocolate chip cookies every Friday, and the whole house would smell like warmth and love. She would sit with me at the kitchen table and help me with my homework. Even when I whined and complained that math was impossible, she never gave up on me. Neither of them did. They did not have much money, but what they lacked in wealth they made up for in pride, in love, in the kind of dedication that built not just a house but a home. Every corner of that place was touched by their hands. The porch my father rebuilt when I was 7. The yellow curtains my mother sewed herself because she said they made the house feel like sunshine. The backyard garden where she grew tomatoes and basil, and would make fresh pasta sauce every summer. That house was not just bricks and wood. It was my parents' legacy. It was their sweat and their dreams. It was everything they worked for. And when they died, it became everything I had left of them. I was 22 years old when I got the phone call. I was at work, halfway through a shift at a cafe downtown, when my phone buzzed in my apron pocket. The voice on the other end was calm, clinical, detached. "Miss Quinn, this is Officer Langston from Maplewood Police Department. There has been an accident." The words that followed did not feel real. Car accident. Head-on collision. Interstate 47. Both passengers deceased at the scene. I am so sorry for your loss. I do not remember dropping the phone. I do not remember my manager catching me as my knees gave out. I do not remember the drive to the hospital, or the white hallways, or the 2 bright fluorescent lights that made everything feel like a nightmare I could not wake up from. All I remember is the silence. The deafening, suffocating silence that swallowed everything whole. My parents were gone. Just like that. One moment they were here, alive, laughing, planning to repaint the living room that weekend. And the next moment they were gone. And I was alone. Grief is a strange, terrible thing. It does not just take the people you love. Takes pieces of you too. Takes your focus, your energy, your will to get out of bed in the morning. In the weeks and months after the funeral, I fell apart. I stopped going to work. I stopped answering phone calls. I would sit in that house in the living room where my mother used to read, and I would stare at the walls and feel absolutely nothing. The bills piled up. The mailbox overflowed with envelopes I could not bring myself to open. Late payment notices. Final warnings. Threats of disconnection. I knew I was drowning, but I could not find the strength to swim. That is when my uncle Raymond Quinn showed up at my door. Raymond was my father's older brother. He was the successful one in the family, the one who wore expensive suits and drove a luxury car, and owned a 3-story house in the suburbs. The one everyone looked up to at family gatherings. The one my father always spoke about with a mixture of pride and something else I could not quite name. Envy, maybe. Or sadness. Raymond had always been charming. He had this way of making you feel like he genuinely cared, like he was on your side, like he would do anything to help. When he showed up at my door that cold November afternoon, I was so relieved I almost cried. "Hey kiddo," he said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like expensive cologne. "I have been worried about you." I let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where my mother used to help me with my homework, and he looked around with this sad, sympathetic expression. "This place is falling apart, Mara," he said gently. "You cannot keep living like this." I knew he was right. I knew I was failing. "I just do not know what to do," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Everything is too much." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Let me help you," he said. "You should not have to deal with all this paperwork and legal stuff on your own. Let me handle it. I will take care of the bills, the mortgage, all of it. You just focus on getting better." I looked up at him with desperate, grateful eyes. "You would do that?" He smiled. "You are family, Mara." Of course I would. And so I trusted him. I trusted him because he was my father's brother. I trusted him because he was family. I trusted him because I was drowning and he was throwing me a lifeline. He brought over a stack of papers the next day. "Just some legal documents," he explained. "Power of attorney so I can manage the property while you get back on your feet." Standard stuff. I barely read them. I was so tired, so numb, so desperate for someone to take the weight off my shoulders. I signed my name on every line he pointed to, and I handed over my entire world without realizing it. For weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was official looking with the law firm's name embossed at the top. My hand shook as I opened it. "Notice of property sale," the header read. I read the first line. Then I read it again. Then I read it 5 more times because my brain could not process what my eyes were seeing. The house had been sold. My childhood home. My parents' legacy. Everything I had left of them. Sold. Without my permission. Without my knowledge. I could not breathe. My vision blurred. I grabbed my phone and called Raymond, my fingers trembling so hard I could barely hit the right buttons. "Hello." His voice was casual, relaxed. "What did you do?" I choked out. "What did you do to my house?" A pause. "Mara, calm down. Do not tell me to calm down." I screamed. "You sold my house. How could you? How could you do that?" Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice was cold, clinical. "You signed the papers, Mara. You gave me power of attorney. I did what was best for the property." Best for the property? I was sobbing now, gasping for air. That was my home. That was my parents' home. "It was a liability," he said flatly. "You were not taking care of it. The bills were piling up. It was going to go into foreclosure anyway. I got a good price for it. You should be thanking me." Thanking him. He wanted me to thank him for destroying the last piece of my parents I had left. "I am coming over," I said. "We are going to fix this. We are going to." "There is nothing to fix," he interrupted. "The sale is final. The new owners take possession next month. Raymond, please." "Mara, listen to me." His voice took on that patronizing tone that made my skin crawl. "You need to grow up. Stop being so emotional. It is just real estate. Just business. You will understand when you are older. Just real estate. Just business." Those words echoed in my head like a death sentence. "You are a monster," I whispered. He sighed like I was being dramatic. "I am trying to help you. One day you will see that." And then he hung up. I drove to his office anyway. I do not even remember getting in my car. I just remember standing in the lobby of his real estate firm, demanding to see him, ignoring the receptionist who kept telling me I needed an appointment. When I finally barged into his office, he looked up from his computer with annoyance, not surprise. Like he had been expecting this. "Mara, you cannot just. How could you?" My voice was raw, broken. "How could you take the only thing I had left?" He leaned back in his leather chair, perfectly calm. "I did not take anything. You were not capable of managing the property. Someone had to make the hard decisions. You stole from me. I saved you from financial ruin, he corrected. That house was going to drag you under. Now you are free of it. Free. He thought he had set me free. That house was not just a building, I said, tears streaming down my face. It was my mother's garden. It was my father's workshop. It was every memory I had of them. And you sold it like it meant nothing. For just a moment something flickered in his eyes. Guilt maybe. Or maybe just impatience. Look, he said, his voice softening just slightly. I know you are upset. But in time you will realize I did you a favor. You could not afford that place. You were drowning in debt. Sometimes we have to let go of the past to move forward. Let go of the past. Move forward. As if my parents were just baggage I needed to discard. I stared at him for a long moment, this man who shared my father's blood but had none of his heart. And I realized something in that moment. He did not care. He did not care about me. He did not care about my parents. He did not care about what that house meant. All he cared about was the money, the profit, the deal. I wiped my tears and stood up straight. You are right about one thing, I said quietly. It is just business. He looked confused. Exactly. Now you are getting it. I turned and walked toward the door. Mara. I stopped but did not turn around. One day, I said, my voice steady now, you are going to understand exactly what just business means. And then I left. The next 5 years of my life were dedicated to one thing. Survival. Then success. Then something else entirely. Revenge is too simple a word for what I wanted. I did not want to hurt Raymond. I wanted him to understand. I wanted him to feel what I felt. I wanted him to lose something that mattered and have someone look him in the eye and tell him it was just business. But before I could do any of that, I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. I moved into a tiny studio apartment on the other side of town. It was barely bigger than a closet, with a bathroom so small I could barely turn around and a kitchen that was just a hot plate and a mini fridge. But it was mine. And I was determined to make it work. I got a job as a waitress at a diner that smelled like grease and burnt coffee. I worked the morning shift, serving breakfast to truckers and early morning commuters, forcing myself to smile even when my feet ached and my heart was still shattered. In the afternoons, I worked as an assistant at a law firm, filing paperwork and answering phones and learning everything I could about contracts, real estate law, and property transactions. At night, I took online classes, business administration, accounting, real estate investment. I studied until my eyes burned. I worked until my hands cramped. I saved every single dollar I could. I stopped buying coffee. I stopped eating out. I wore the same 3 outfits on rotation and cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment I wanted to give up and crawl back into the darkness, I thought about that house. The yellow curtains. The smell of sawdust in my father's workshop. The sound of my mother's laughter echoing through the kitchen. And I thought about Raymond's face when he told me not to be emotional. That kept me going. By the end of year 2, I had earned my degree. By year 3, I had saved enough to start my own real estate investment firm. It was small. Just me and a cramped office I rented above a laundromat. But it was mine. I named it Quinn Holdings after my parents. Every deal I made carefully, strategically. I started small, buying distressed properties, fixing them up, and selling them for a profit. I learned the market inside and out. I learned how to spot opportunities. I learned how to negotiate, how to close deals, how to build wealth quietly, methodically, without drawing attention. And slowly, steadily, my little firm grew. By year 4, I had a team. By year 5, I had a reputation. People in the industry started to know my name. Not as the grieving girl who lost her parents, but as Mara Quinn, the sharp, savvy investor who never missed a detail and never made a bad deal. I was not the same person Raymond had dismissed 5 years ago. I was stronger, smarter, more focused. And I was ready. It happened on a Tuesday evening in late September. I was in my office going through a portfolio of distressed mortgages that a bank was selling off. It was routine work. I scanned through the list, looking for properties that might be worth acquiring. And then I saw it. A name that made my heart stop. Raymond Quinn. Property address. 1247, Willowbrook Drive. Status: mortgage delinquent. For months past due. I read it again. Then I read it a third time. My uncle, the man who had sold my childhood home and told me it was just business, was about to lose his own house. The irony was almost too perfect. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. My hands were shaking. Not with fear. With something else. Purpose. This was it. This was the moment I had been working toward without even realizing it. I picked up the phone and called my attorney. "Marcus," I said when he answered, "I need you to pull everything you can on a property for me." "Sure thing. What is the address?" I gave it to him. "And Marcus? I want to move fast on this. Very fast." Within 2 weeks, I had all the information I needed. Raymond's mortgage was in serious trouble. He had taken out a second loan to finance some failed business venture. When that venture collapsed, he could not keep up with the payments. The bank was preparing to foreclose. I made an offer to buy the mortgage. Not through Quinn Holdings. I used a shell company, a holding entity with a generic name that could not be traced back to me. The bank accepted immediately. They were happy to offload a bad debt. And just like that, I owned Raymond Quinn's mortgage. I owned his house. I owned his fate. And he had no idea. I did not tell him right away. I wanted him to feel what I felt. The confusion. The fear. The slow, creeping realization that something was very wrong. The first letter went out a week after the purchase was finalized. It was professional, formal, completely standard. "Dear Mr. Quinn, your mortgage has been transferred to a new lender. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to discuss repayment options and bring your account current. Sincerely, Cascade Financial Group." He ignored it. Of course he did. Men like Raymond always think the rules do not apply to them. So I sent a second letter. This one was a little more urgent. "Dear Mr. Quinn, your account is now 5 months past due. Failure to respond will result in formal default proceedings." Still nothing. So I moved to the next step. A certified letter. A notice of default. And finally a phone call. I had my assistant make the call first just to see if he would respond. He did. And he was furious. "This is ridiculous," he shouted into the phone. "I have been dealing with this mortgage for 15 years. Who the hell are you people?" My assistant, bless her, stayed perfectly calm. "Sir, we are simply the new mortgage holders. We acquired your loan from the bank. If you would like to discuss a payment plan." "I want to speak to your boss," he interrupted. "Right now." She transferred the call to my line. I took a deep breath. Then I answered. "This is Mara Quinn." Silence. Long, heavy silence. "What did you just say?" His voice was quiet now, uncertain. I said, "This is Mara Quinn. And we need to talk about your mortgage, Uncle Raymond." I could hear him breathing on the other end. "Mara? What is this?" "This," I said calmly, "is just business." Another pause. Then a shaky laugh. "You cannot be serious. This is some kind of joke." "I am very serious. You are 5 months behind on your payments. I am the new lender. And unless you bring your account current within 30 days, I will be forced to proceed with foreclosure." "You cannot do this," he sputtered. "I am your uncle. I am family." "Exactly," I said softly. "And you once told me not to be emotional. It is just real estate, remember? Just business." Silence. The kind of silence that feels like justice. "Mara, please. I will send you the payment plan options," I said. "I suggest you review them carefully." And then I hung up. He showed up at my office 2 days later. I was not surprised. My receptionist buzzed me. "Miss Quinn, there is a Raymond Quinn here to see you. He does not have an appointment, but he is insisting." "Send him in," I said. I stood up and smoothed my blazer. I had dressed carefully that morning. A sharp black suit. Heels that made me 3 inches taller. My hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. I looked every inch the successful businesswoman I had become. When the door opened and Raymond walked in, I almost did not recognize him. He looked older. Tired. The expensive suit he wore could not hide the stress in his eyes, the tightness around his mouth. He stopped when he saw me. Really saw me. Not the broken girl he had dismissed 5 years ago, but the woman I had become. "Mara," he said, and his voice cracked just slightly. Uncle Raymond, I replied coolly. Please sit down. He did not move. What is this? He asked. What are you doing? I am doing business, I said. The same thing you taught me. This is not business. This is revenge, I offered. Is that what you were going to say? He flinched. You are trying to destroy me. I shook my head slowly. No, I am not trying to destroy you. I am simply enforcing the terms of your mortgage. You are in default. I am the lender. This is how it works. You bought my mortgage just to punish me. I bought your mortgage, I corrected, because it was a sound investment opportunity, a distressed asset with significant equity, exactly the kind of deal I have built my business on. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. You have changed. Yes, I agreed. I have. You taught me that lesson too. He sank into the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking much older than his years. Mara, please. I made a mistake. I know I hurt you, but you cannot do this. Why not? I asked, sitting down and folding my hands on the desk. You did it to me. That was different. How? He struggled for words. I was trying to help you. Were you? I tilted my head. Or were you trying to profit off my grief? He flinched again. Tell me, I continued. How much did you make when you sold my parents' house? What was your commission on that deal? His face went pale. It was not about the money. Everything is about money to you, I said. You told me yourself. Do not be emotional. It is just real estate. Just business. I was wrong, he burst out. Okay, I was wrong. I should not have done it. I know that now. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. This man who had taken everything from me, who had dismissed my pain, who had profited off my loss. Now he was sitting in my office begging, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just cold, clear purpose. I am not going to destroy you, I said quietly. I am going to give you the same option you gave me. You can pay what you owe or you can lose your home. Your choice. I cannot afford the payments, he said desperately. Business has been bad. I am barely keeping my head above water. Then sell, I said simply. His eyes widened. Sell my house. Why not? It is just real estate, right? Just a building. Let go of the past and move forward. I was using his own words against him, and we both knew it. He looked down at his hands. That house is where my kids grew up, he said softly. Where my wife and I built our life. Where all my memories are. I let those words hang in the air for a long moment. Then I said, very quietly, now you understand. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw actual remorse in his eyes. Real understanding. Real regret. But it was too late. I will give you 60 days, I said. That is more than you gave me. Bring the account current or sell. Those are your options. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. He knew there was nothing he could say. Nothing that would change my mind. He stood up slowly, looking defeated in a way I had never seen him before. I am sorry, Mara, he said, for what I did. I am truly sorry. I nodded. I believe you. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about that question for a long moment. Maybe, I said finally. But that does not change what happens next. He nodded and left. 60 days later, Raymond put his house on the market. He could not come up with the money. His business was failing. His savings were gone. He had no choice. And when the listing went live, guess who made an offer? Me. Through another holding company, of course. I paid market value. Nothing more, nothing less. When the sale closed and he found out who had bought it, he called me. Why? He asked, his voice hollow. Why did you buy it? Because it was a good investment, I said. And because I wanted you to know what it feels like to hand over the keys to someone who does not care what that place means to you. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I deserved this. Yes, I agreed. You did. I could have been cruel. I could have evicted him immediately. I could have demolished the house out of spite. But I did not. Because that is not who I am. Instead, I gave him 30 days to move out. I helped him find an apartment he could afford. I even wrote him a check for moving expenses. Not because I forgave him, but because I wanted him to understand the difference between justice and cruelty. I wanted him to know that I was better than he was, that I had learned the lessons he taught me but had chosen to be a better person. When he moved out, I sold the house to a young family, a couple with 2 kids and a dog. They reminded me of my parents in a way. Hardworking, hopeful, building something together. I sold it to them for less than market value because I liked them, and because I did not need the money. I needed the closure. A few months after everything was settled, I did something I had been avoiding for 5 years. I drove past my childhood home, the house my parents built, the house Raymond sold, the house I had lost. I parked across the street and just sat there, looking at it. The new owners had repainted it. The shutters were a different color now. The garden was different too, with flowers my mother never would have chosen. But the porch was still there. The one my father rebuilt when I was 7. And the yellow curtains still hung in the front window. Those ridiculous, cheerful yellow curtains my mother had sewn because she said they made the house feel like sunshine. The new owners had kept them. As I sat there, a woman came out onto the porch. She had a baby on her hip and a smile on her face. She waved at me, probably thinking I was a neighbor. I waved back, and I realized something. I did not need to buy that house back. I did not need to own it to keep my parents' memory alive, because they were not in the walls. They were not in the porch or the garden or the yellow curtains. They were in me, in everything I had become, in my strength, in my determination, in my refusal to let grief and betrayal destroy me. My parents had built that house with their own hands, and I had built myself the same way. From nothing, with patience and purpose and pride. I started the car and drove away. I did not need to look back anymore. Quinn Holdings continued to grow. Within a year, I had expanded into 3 new markets. Within 2 years, I was managing a portfolio worth millions. I hired people who needed second chances the way I had. I invested in communities that reminded me of Maplewood. I built something that mattered. Not just for me but for others too. And every single day when I walked into my office and saw my parents' names on the door, I remembered what they taught me. Work hard. Build something that lasts. Treat people with dignity. Do not let the world make you bitter. Raymond called me once about a year after everything settled. "How are you doing?" he asked, his voice tentative. "I am doing well," I said. "Really well, actually." "That is good. I am glad." A pause. "I heard your business is doing great," he continued. "Everyone in the industry is talking about Quinn Holdings." "We have been fortunate," I said carefully. Another pause. "Mara, I just wanted to say, I am proud of you. Your father would have been proud too." Those words hit me harder than I expected. My throat tightened. "Thank you," I managed. "And I am sorry. I know I have said it before, but I mean it. I am truly sorry for what I did." I closed my eyes. "I know you are. Do you think?" He hesitated. "Do you think we will ever be able to move past this? Be family again?" I thought about that question for a long time. Family. That word used to mean everything to me. Now it was complicated. "Maybe," I said finally. "Someday. But not yet." "I understand." We said goodbye and I hung up. I do not know if I will ever fully forgive him. Some betrayals cut too deep. Some wounds take a lifetime to heal. But I do know this. I do not hate him anymore. I do not need revenge anymore. I do not need anything from him at all. Because I already have everything I need. I have my parents' memory. I have my own strength. I have the business I built and the life I created and the knowledge that I survived. I took the worst thing that ever happened to me and I turned it into power. Not the power to destroy, but the power to build. The power to choose. The power to stand in my office, look at my success, and know that I earned every single bit of it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret buying Raymond's mortgage. If I feel guilty about forcing him to sell his home. And I tell them the truth. No, I do not regret it. Not for a second. Because what I did was not about revenge. It was about showing him the consequences of his choices. It was about teaching him the lesson he thought he was teaching me. That actions have consequences. That business is never just business when it involves people's lives. That you cannot take everything from someone and expect them to stay broken. Some people will rise from the ashes. Some people will rebuild. Some people will come back stronger than you ever imagined. And when they do, you better hope you treated them with kindness. Because karma has a long memory and an impeccable sense of timing. Today, Quinn Holdings is one of the most respected real estate investment firms in the region. We specialize in affordable housing and community development. We buy distressed properties and turn them into homes for families who need them. We invest in neighborhoods that others overlook. We build businesses that create jobs. We do well by doing good. And every time I close a deal, every time I hand keys to a family buying their first home, every time I see the look of joy and hope on their faces, I think of my parents. I think of the house they built. I think of the legacy they left me. Not money, not property, but values, work ethic, integrity, love. Those are the things that last. Those are the things worth fighting for. And those are the things I carry with me every single day. My name is Mara Quinn. I lost my childhood home when I was 22 years old. I lost my parents when I was too young to truly understand what I was losing. I was betrayed by family. I was dismissed and underestimated and told to stop being emotional. And I could have let that destroy me. I could have stayed bitter and broken and stuck in the past. But I did not. I rebuilt. I rose. I became someone my parents would be proud of. Someone I am proud of. And when I bought my uncle's mortgage and gave him a taste of his own medicine, I did not do it out of cruelty. I did it to teach a lesson. To show him that we all reap what we sow. That karma is real. That justice, though sometimes slow, always finds its way home. So if you are reading this story and you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not stuck. What happened to you was wrong. The pain you felt was real. The anger, the grief, the sense of injustice, all of it is valid. But you do not have to stay in that place. You can choose to rise. You can choose to rebuild. You can choose to turn your pain into purpose and your betrayal into strength. It will not be easy. There will be days when you want to give up. Days when the weight of everything feels too heavy to carry. Days when you wonder if fighting back is even worth it. But I promise you it is worth it. Every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. Every moment you push forward when everything in you wants to quit. It is all worth it. Because on the other side of that pain is power. Real power. The kind that cannot be taken from you. The kind that comes from knowing you survived the worst and came out stronger. I still drive past my childhood home sometimes. Not because I am holding on to the past, but because it reminds me of how far I have come. The yellow curtains are still there, bright and cheerful in the afternoon sun. The porch still stands strong, weathered but solid. The house is still filled with life and laughter and love, just with a different family now. And I am okay with that. More than okay. I am at peace. Because I understand now that home is not just a place. It is not just walls and floors and yellow curtains. Home is what you carry inside you. It is the memories that shaped you. It is the values your parents instilled in you. It is the strength you discovered when everything was taken away. My parents built a house with their hands, but they built something far more important in me. They built resilience. They built determination. They built love. And no one can ever sell that. No one can ever take it away. Raymond and I have a complicated relationship now. We are not close. We probably never will be. But we have reached a kind of understanding. He knows what he did was wrong. He knows he hurt me in ways that can never be fully repaired. And I know that he is human, flawed, capable of terrible choices, but also capable of growth, of regret, of learning. We see each other at occasional family gatherings now. Weddings, funerals, the kinds of events you cannot avoid. We are polite. Sometimes we even have real conversations. He asks about my business and I can tell he is genuinely interested, genuinely proud. I ask about his life and I can tell he is struggling but trying. It is not forgiveness. Not completely. But it is something. It is acknowledgement. It is moving forward. It is choosing not to let bitterness poison the rest of my life. Last month I did something I never thought I would do. I donated a significant amount of money to a foundation that helps people who are struggling with grief and financial hardship. after losing family members. The kind of people I was 5 years ago. Lost. Overwhelmed. Vulnerable to people who might take advantage. I named the fund after my parents. The Daniel and Clara Quinn Memorial Fund. It provides financial counseling, legal assistance, and support to people who are trying to navigate the nightmare of settling estates and managing property after devastating loss. It helps people avoid the mistakes I made. It protects people from predators like Raymond was. At the fund's opening event, I gave a speech. I stood in front of a room full of donors and beneficiaries and community leaders, and I told my story. Not all of it, but enough. I talked about losing my parents. I talked about losing my home. I talked about the long, difficult journey of rebuilding my life. And I talked about why it matters to help others who are going through the same thing. Grief makes us vulnerable, I said, my voice steady and clear. And there are people who will exploit that vulnerability. But there are also people who will stand with us, who will lift us up, who will remind us that we are stronger than we think. This fund exists to be that support. To be the help I wish I had received. To be the safety net that catches people before they fall too far. When I finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. People came up to me afterward, shaking my hand, sharing their own stories of loss and recovery. And I realized something profound. My pain had purpose. My story mattered. Not just for me, but for everyone who had walked a similar path. Every person I could help, every family I could protect, every tragedy I could prevent. That was my parents' legacy living on. That was their love multiplied and magnified and spread out into the world. That was home not as a building but as an idea. Safety. As belonging. As love that never dies. I am 30 years old now. 8 years have passed since I lost my parents. 5 years since Raymond sold my childhood home. 5 years since I made the promise that changed everything. And I am not the same person I was. I am stronger, wiser, more careful about who I trust, but also more compassionate, because I know what it is like to lose everything. I know what it is like to be betrayed. I know what it is like to claw your way back from the edge of despair. And I know that success is not just about accumulating wealth or winning battles against people who wronged you. Real success is about becoming someone who makes the world a little bit better. Someone who uses their power to protect, not to harm. Someone who remembers where they came from and reaches back to help others find their way forward. Quinn Holdings now operates in 7 states. We have 32 employees. Last year, we helped 83 families purchase their first homes through our affordable housing program. We renovated 6 apartment buildings in underserved communities, creating safe, clean, affordable housing for over 200 people. We partnered with local organizations to provide job training and financial literacy programs. We built playgrounds and community centers. We turned empty lots into gardens. We took spaces that were neglected and forgotten, and filled them with life and hope and possibility. And every single project we complete, I think of my parents. I think of the house they built with their own hands. I think of the love they poured into every corner of our home. And I try to pour that same love into everything I build. There are still hard days. Days when I miss my parents so much it physically hurts. Days when I walk past a hardware store and smell sawdust and have to stop and catch my breath because it reminds me of my father's workshop. Days when I see yellow curtains in a window and feel tears spring to my eyes. Days when the weight of everything I have carried threatens to crush me. On those days, I allow myself to feel it. I do not run from the pain anymore. I do not bury it or ignore it or pretend I am fine when I am not. I sit with it. I let it wash over me. Cry if I need to cry. And then I get up. I put on my suit. I go to my office. I look at my parents' names on the door. And I keep going. Because that is what they taught me. That is what they would want. To keep going. To keep building. To keep loving. To keep fighting for what matters. People sometimes ask me what I learned from everything that happened. And there are so many answers I could give. I learned that grief can either destroy you or forge you into something stronger. I learned that betrayal, as painful as it is, can teach you who you really are and what you are truly capable of. I learned that success is sweeter when you earn it through hard work and integrity. I learned that justice is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet and methodical and perfectly timed. I learned that you do not need to be cruel to be strong. I learned that forgiveness is not about excusing what someone did, but about freeing yourself from the weight of anger. I learned that home is not a place you can lose. It is something you carry with you always. But most importantly, I learned this. You are never as powerless as you think you are. Even when everything has been taken from you. Even when you are broken and lost and drowning. Even when the people who were supposed to protect you have betrayed you. You still have power. The power to choose. To rise. To rebuild. To become someone stronger, wiser, kinder than the person you were before. That power cannot be sold. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be signed away. It lives in you. And once you discover it, once you learn to wield it, nothing can ever take it away. Last week I got a letter in the mail. Not a bill or a legal notice or a business document. Just a simple envelope with my name handwritten on the front. Inside was a card. On the front was a picture of a house with yellow curtains. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, in shaky handwriting, was a message from Raymond. Dear Mara, I saw this card and thought of you. Of your parents' house. Of everything I took from you. I know I can never truly make it right. I know words cannot undo what I did. But I want you to know that you have become everything your father dreamed you would be. Strong. Successful. Kind despite having every reason not to be. You are a better person than I ever was. And I am sorry it took losing everything for me to see that. Your father would be so proud of you. I know I have no right to say this, but I am proud of you too. Thank you for teaching me what real strength looks like. Uncle Raymond. I sat at my kitchen table holding that card and I cried. Not tears of anger or pain, but tears of release, of closure, of finally truly letting go. I keep that card in my desk drawer now, not because I need it, but because it represents something important. It represents the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. It represents the moment when justice was served and mercy was given. It represents the moment when I chose to stop being defined by what was done to me and started being defined by who I chose to become. If you are still with me, still reading this story, I want to leave you with one final thought. Life will hurt you. People will betray you. You will lose things that matter deeply. You will face moments when everything feels hopeless and impossible, and too heavy to bear. But those moments do not define you. What defines you is what you do next. Do you stay down? Or do you get up? Do you let bitterness consume you? Or do you transform pain into purpose? Do you become the villain in your own story? Or do you become the hero? The choice is always yours. Always. And I hope with everything in me that you choose to rise. That you choose to rebuild. That you choose to become someone your younger self would be proud of. Because you are capable of so much more than you know. You are stronger than your worst day. You are more resilient than your deepest wound. You are worthy of success and happiness and peace. Even after everything you have been through. Especially after everything you have been through. My name is Mara Quinn. I lost my childhood home, but I found myself. I lost my family's legacy, but I built my own. I lost everything that mattered, but I gained something far more valuable. I gained the knowledge that I can survive anything, that I can overcome anything, that I can build anything, and so can you. So whatever you are going through right now, whatever pain you are carrying, whatever betrayal you are nursing, whatever loss you are grieving, know that you are not alone. Know that you are stronger than you think. Know that this is not the end of your story. It is just the beginning of the next chapter. And that chapter can be anything you want it to be. Make it beautiful. Make it powerful. Make it yours. Today, I am sitting in my office on the 20th floor of a building I own. Through the window I can see the city spread out below me, full of possibility and promise. On my desk is a framed photograph of my parents, young and happy, standing in front of the house they built together. Next to it is the deed to my first investment property. And next to that is a small piece of yellow fabric, a scrap from those curtains my mother made, the ones that somehow survived and found their way back to me through a kind stranger who knew what they meant. These are my treasures. Not the buildings I own or the money in my accounts or the success I have achieved, but these reminders of where I came from, of who loved me, of what I survived, of who I became. The sun is setting now, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange and pink. It is beautiful, peaceful, full of light, just like my mother always said our home should be. And I realize that I have finally found it again. Home. Not in a building or an address or a set of yellow curtains. But here, in this moment, in this life I built, in this person I became, in this peace I earned, this is home, and no one can ever take it away. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, justice, and the power of rebuilding your life from the ashes, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more real stories about real people who refused to stay broken, who chose to rise, and who proved that the end of one chapter is just the beginning of something even more powerful. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community of survivors and fighters. Because your story is not over yet, and we cannot wait to see what you build next. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are stronger than you know.